Today we're going to dive into the Blackbird Studio High Gain Kemper Profile Pack from Kit Plugins. What we're going to do is play some examples and along the way get information about all the different amps available and the different types of presets. So I'm going to get this set up and let's just dive right into our first example. I'm going to be using the PRS Baritone 277, stock pickups, and it's tuned to D standard. Let's check something out. So that profile was done from the Third Power kitchen sink amp. That was one I was really interested to try out because it's a much more rare amp. I haven't actually heard any sims or profiles of it. And since it's hard to get your hands on or a little less common, it was very cool to see it in this pack as something that I could try out. Actually, 2 Third Power amps are in there, so all bases covered on that one. Now what I used on this one was a standard profile, not what they call a mix-ready preset. There are 2 different types of profiles available, and they go into 2 different types of categories. The main category is going to be the unsculpted ones or the standard profile. It's mic'd directly and there's no additional treatment. Common to putting something in the mix, you're going to do something like high or low pass it, maybe tweak a little EQ, add effects, that kind of thing. That's not what's in the standard preset. You get the completely unsculpted version. Then they have a category called the mix-ready presets. Those are meant to be completely polished, good, produced sounds with effects, with the high and low pass, as I mentioned, any type of things to really make those last polished elements that are going to make it drop directly into a mix. On this one, I actually wanted to do a mix version with some drums and everything, but I wanted to do the unproduced or the not mix ready version. For me, the real test of whether something was amped well or mic'd well is that you don't have to treat it that much to get it to sit in the mix well. A good engineer that knows how to mic a cab really well is going to get a great sound, and then it's just tiny bits of polish. Or sometimes you don't treat it at all if you get it right at the source going in. So I wanted to hear how the not mix ready sounded in the mix. And I think it did a pretty good job. That tells me that these are done really well, that the clarity's there. And again, I may do some other treatments, some things against the drums, you know, of course, making it glue in with the bass and that type of thing to really polish it up. But if it's well mic'd and a good source sound, you shouldn't have to treat it that much. And I feel like this kind of held up. So it was definitely a cool first experiment, doing an unknown amp, just dropping it right in, uncut, no special treatment, and I think it held its own. So I'm going to do a couple like that and drop in some mix ready pieces here and there, and then we'll do a full mix ready at the end. But I want to hear a lot of the direct sounds, and that's going to tell you what you're going to get right out of the box too with some of the unsculpted. So I'm going to switch guitars here and let's throw down with something else. What I used on this one is a Agile 7-string with a EMG 81X in the bridge. The preset on this one is based around the Bogner Helios. Again, a very cool and kind of uncommon one to go to. Having the Third Power in there, and most Bogners you're going to get tons of profiles for, like the Uberschall, things like that. So seeing the Helios in here was really cool. There's a lot of amps that are covered in here, and it seems like it's a really good comparison between the stock go-to that you would expect in any kind of high gain setup. You've got the Peavey 5150, you've got some Deizel, you've got a JCM 800, a Plexi, and things from Mesa, all the standards you would expect to go in for high gain and metal type of things. But then you've got some other uncommon amps like the Helios, like the Third Power, that really give you some other interesting options. So it's not just a pack of our take on the more common metal amps, and it's just kind of shades of something that you may already have. There's some really different options and kind of an all-in-one pack. So you get the standards and you get some special touches and some interesting colors to go along with it. So let's hook up, try something else. I decided to go kind of uber metal with that using the 7-string again. And this one's really interesting. This is a preset called the Classified High Gain, where they don't tell you what amp it is. It's something specially chosen by John McBride, the guy who did all the presets for this. And apparently his go-to amp, or his special secret sauce one that he puts in there that he wanted to make sure got profiled. Really interesting texture on this one. I have some guesses as to what it might be, but can't really call it exactly. Maybe you know. But very interesting amp, very throaty. It has a nice grit and aggression, and especially for much lower tuned metal and things like this, I thought it added grit and grind without losing any clarity. So that was really an interesting choice. And again, this one, untouched. So not a mix-ready preset, and I think it sounded pretty chunky right out of the gate. This would be one I'd probably be pretty tempted to use on some work of mine, just because I like that real snarling, kind of unbridled aggression on it. So whatever amp it is, it's a very cool choice. So next up, I think I want to get to some actual full-on mix-ready. I'm going to do a rhythm preset and a lead, and both of them are going to be pre-carved. Let's try something maybe a bit more of a classic metal type of example. I'm going to switch back to the PRS, and let's see what we come up with. Okay, so again, no treatment of anything beyond what the preset already is. For this one, I used one that was named Judas, an obvious tip to classic metal in the style of Judas Priest sound. And the tuning on this one was drop C. For the lead preset, I used something called the Peavey Blue MC, meaning it has a micro pitch on it and some delay. The thing I liked about this, and is immediately noticeable to me about this kind of mix-ready preset, is it isn't overhyped. It really is mix-ready. You didn't really notice the depth of the delay and things like that. It colored the sound as it should, but didn't stand out obnoxiously. I find a lot of times when you get presets, especially with some modelers or amp sims and things, they really overdo the effects to make it sound good by itself, or it's just this wash I think, to try and hype to the ear when the person first plays it, and it really isn't mix ready. Even though they've added a bunch of effects, you have to really make a lot of changes to make it sit in the mix. Didn't touch this one, I just dropped it right in, and really the only place you can hear those tails of the reverb is at the end when I let it fade out a bit so you could hear those tails coming through. But it just made it sit in the mix, and it gave a nice tonality to the leads without it getting washed out or just becoming a blur like a lot of badly done in effects will on some presets and profiles. So I think mix ready holds up to its name. Again, the Judas is a mix ready as well as that one. For the mix ready presets, you'll get a lot of nods to what style it's done in by the names and titles, so you get a bit of a guide as to where you're going. You're going to see things like Sickness being a nod to something like Disturbed and their type of heavier nu metal sound, or things that let you know it's something to sound a bit more like maybe Linkin Park or the Foo Fighters or things like that. There's a giveaway in the titles of a number of these. I'm going to put the preset names up here and some amp models so that you can see them. So as you can see, it's not just really heavy metal or even classic metal that's included in here. You've got presets based on the Plexi and even things like Foo Fighters and things. It's not massive metal, so you get a wide range of things. Again, the JCM 800 being put in here, but you can see there's a number of amps and presets that can cover pretty much anything, I think, from standard rock or AC/DC or even, southern rock type of sounds where it's not over the top complete distortion. And then all the way up to things where you're really blistering or even going into death metal type of sounds. So huge variety in a reasonably large pack, but not something where you're searching through presets forever. Fairly clear and understandable, and you can get to your target right away. So I was fairly impressed with the pack. I think it's really well engineered. And again, it passed kind of my torture test of, if it's not mix ready, how actual mix ready is it? And a lot of these uncarved presets, I would see using those pretty heavily, just dropping them in and making very small adjustments. So I think they're ready to go in for recording, and live, I think they'd really shine too. Very articulate, and I didn't find any amps, even if it wasn't my taste or my flavor, that I thought were bad versions of that amp. I thought that clarity was a big plus across the board, and also that the variety of sounds, it wasn't how I hear sometimes an engineer that tries to get the same sound out of a bunch of different amps and you just get variations. Very distinct different sounds and different colors, and that works great for layering guitars in a mix or finding your personal tone and what appeals to you. So for more information, you can catch them at the Kit Plugins site. And I had a really good time checking these out. Thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the review, and I will see you on the next one.